Hi, everybody. Welcome to Mary Wieden You. We got a fun show today. We're going to talk about poor Dr. Diana Bratton. I don't think when she went to medical school, she thought that she'd get involved in a murder investigation, and all kinds of things happened to her. Who's Dr. Diana Bratton? You'll find out from her, shall we say, her mentor, Darden North, who happens to be a doctor. Yes, that's Darden North. And he's also a wonderful thriller writer, so you'll enjoy talking to him. But a couple things to tell you about. First of all, there is a settlement in Rankin County with the goon squad, those guys are all in prison now for what they did, tortured and so on. A couple of black guys in the county some years ago, and they filed a civil lawsuit, and they have won. Each guy gets $2.5 million. $500,000 for one part, but the second part comes from insurance. And it is said that it will not be will not be paid for by property owners. Well, we'll find out about that.
$500,000 of it. $2 million of it is covered under the insurance policy, yeah. And $500,000 is going to come from somewhere.
Well, yeah, you be watching that stuff. Don't forget, we freely give money away in Rankin County. Like $15,000 to every teacher a few years ago. Yeah, we freely give away money without representation. But anyway, that's been settled. That's number one. Number two is tonight is it's the big Greek festival, sort of. It's not a festival, sort of, but it's called A Taste of the Mediterranean at 7:00 tonight at Old Capitol Inn. Food and dancing and all kinds of cool stuff, And
you can see Will if you get down there.
If you get there. Yeah. Yes. And I wanted to give the website out. Where's my phone? I had some stuff. I did the announcement on the website because they'd like you to buy your tickets in advance, and you can do so by going online. Now, hold on one little second here. Honestly, this phone. It's www.Greek.
It's GreekJacksonMS.org.
Yeah, that's it.
GreekJacksonMS.org.
Yeah, all one word.
And when you get on that site, if it's got a unbelievably beautiful image, like Santorini, you're on the right spot. So if you go, wow, I want to be there, you're at the right location.
You can be there. Yeah, that's that. And then something else, too, that's going on this weekend is going to be in Ridgeland. A couple of things going on. It's Saturday tomorrow is the big, it's a big bike ride. And they also have got Sante South Wine and Food Festival and the Natchez Trace Century Ride. So all these things are going on. And those rides, by the way, if you're going to ride the bike, you can either go 5 miles, 20 miles, 25 miles, 62 miles, or 100 miles. You get your choice of how far you want to ride your bike.
How many do you think the mayor's going to go? Because he's a bike rider. You think he's doing the whole thing?
I wouldn't be surprised. Mm-hmm.
I bet he's
Jim McGee rides 30 miles a day.
I know, that 60's nothing for him.
Right, yeah. I was talking with Dr. North. I said 5 miles. He said, that's a lot. No, I can go 5 miles in my neighborhood. That's just a warm-up. Do you ever ride a bike?
You can do that chasing Heidi. Right?
Well, no, I don't take her riding because...
No, I mean, when she takes off, you could go 5 miles.
Yeah, really, I should be on a...
I love riding a bike. I do. I actually like it a little more than jogging. It's less monotonous, but I do love jogging.
I like to see things, and I don't want to kill my knees. Mm-hmm. I mean, I can kill my knees in other ways, but that's not one of them.
I could do the stationary bike like at the house, but a lot of people love that. Yeah. I do like getting out and seeing the countryside a little bit.
When you ride your bike, do you wear a helmet?
I'm not answering that.
Oh, my God. Well, I didn't used to until Bert got chased by a dog one time and got chased into a ditch. This is in Audubon Point. And he fell off his bike. And he had a helmet on, thank God, because it saved his head. But he did break his collarbone. But he figured breaking your collarbone's pretty bland compared to breaking your brain. But I always wear a helmet. It's like a seatbelt to me. And I have a 21-speed cross bike, which I like, so I can go, on the road. I can
21 speeds, man. I don't know what to do with all
big.
That.
It's got a nice little granny on it. If you know what a granny is, right? Granny speed when you're down in the low speed.
Oh,
you go like this.
Like you're going up a hill or something.
Yeah, like you're a granny trying to go up a hill.
Well,
yeah,
that's downhill. When
you go uphill, you want like this downhill.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
You end up on the top, or you can just glide. But anyway, I have to get a new seat and it needs a tune-up. But anyway, so this is the big thing. I won't be right, but I bet you the mayor will probably go 100 miles. He's probably all revved up for that one, big time. And so that goes along the Trace. And have you ever ridden on the Trace, by the way? It's sort of like on popcorn. I've ridden part of the Trace, I think from the swamp. The swamp, there's a little swamp along the Trace, and then it goes up to Rattler Ferry. I've been on that part of it. Yeah, it's kind of funny, but anyway. So that's so let's see. The bike ride is this weekend. Let's see. Friday afternoon welcome party. They're going to have a packet pickup for this. It's Friday at the Ridgeland Visitor Center on Highland Colony Parkway. To register, learn more. Listen to this. Here's some bike things. http://bike sign up. All one word. Bikesignup.com. Race Mississippi/Ridgeland/Natchez Trace Century Ride. Again, www.bikesignup.com. Then /race/MS/Ridgeland/Natchez Trace Century Ride. That's a lot of stuff to keep in mind, but you can do that. I bet you if you go to bikesignup.com and just race, there'll be some other things that you'll be able to find while you're at it. And then there's a post-ride luncheon at the Old Trace Park. That's going to be live music and free massages. Hey, yes, from 10 o'clock in the morning till 2 in the afternoon. I'll take a 4-hour massage. And then Saturday night, Sante South Wine and Food Festival. That's really pretty cool, from 7:30 to 9:30. At the Ark at St. Andrew's Episcopal School. So they got a lot of stuff going on in Ridgeland this weekend, so we wanted to tell you about that as well. So Greeks tonight, tomorrow is bike ride and do the Sante South. Okay, now let's go to Dr. Britton. I said I posted about her on my Twitter. It said Darden North's Dr. Diana Bratton finds herself mixed up in a homicide investigation. Welcome, Darden North, the writer. And he's the same Dr. North who is the OBGYN too. So when you were growing up, somewhere along the way you said, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a writer, or something like that, and you came together. What came first, writing or medicine, and when you were growing up?
Mary, it's really great to be back with you today, and it's always fun to be here in SuperTalk Radio.
Book, man.
First, of course, the medicine came first, and then I got interested in writing, older after my kids were getting bigger, and it wasn't helping with homework, and I saw the other people writing novels, and I said, I think I can do that too. And
other people like who, John Grisham or Greg
Iles, other people, contemporary authors at the time, and of course there are other people in medicine that have written novels and fiction.
Yeah, Robin
too.
Cook, I think. Isn't Robin Cook one of them?
Robin Cook, Michael Crichton.
Oh yeah.
And so anyway, there's good company out there, and I'm working on it and have really enjoyed it.
Well, I guess so. Your publicist must be very happy with you. Your publisher. Seventh book, man. How do you? Where does this come from?
Well,
it's in you. It's been in you for a while, obviously.
Well, Rooftop, which will be the 7th novel that comes out later this month.
That's the one.
Is actually the third in a trilogy of novels that involves the protagonist that you mentioned, Diana Bratton. She was introduced in Wiggle Room, and then The 5 Manners of Death, and now Rooftop.
So we were thinking about this show. I woke up Thursday morning. I woke up thinking about, now let's see, what's a good way to... I hadn't read the book. What's a good way to get somebody to die? Don't try the eye drop situation, because that's not good, I don't think. Don't try getting a scalpel and just nicking a carotid. I mean, that's awful.
Well, this novel does involve
that one, the 5 ways.
Yeah, well, in The 5 Manners of Death, we, of course, which was the book that precedes Rooftop, did talk about the 5 ways to die, such as suicide, homicide, natural causes, accidents, and undetermined. But
that's the one you like.
in Rooftop, I needed to find a way for someone to be murdered without a trace at all. And it's interesting how you can find that information. I actually asked another physician how you could do that, and he didn't hesitate and told me.
And you explained that it's for a book. It's for a book.
They know what it's for, but so anyway, I'm not going to tell you how we did that.
No.
But that plays heavily into the novel.
Well, that's amazing, because people, I'd be afraid to look up certain things, because if you looked it up, if you went on the internet and looked up, they think, whoa, what is she doing? Because people follow us.
Well, you wonder. In one novel, I had to learn how to burn a house down, and then also how to build a roadside bomb, things like that. So, anyway.
Just go online and look them up.
It's there.
I would think I would go to DuckDuckGo to look that up. I don't think I'd hang around Google for that. I think Google's like, you're inviting the world, but I think DuckDuckGo, at least they supposedly don't follow you around.
Well, I haven't had any trouble getting on airplanes and things like that, so I think I'm okay.
You would know. By the way, I forgot to tell this to you, Lance. We have got some books. Darden North brought some books that we'd like to give away to the audience, and so all they have to do to win a book is to call in our line. By the way,
and they're signed copies.
So how many do you have?
I've got 4 copies of House Call, my first novel, and 4 copies of Points of Origin, my second novel.
Fantastic.
And we put them out on the table there. Yeah, so all they have to do.
So you want a phone call?
Just a phone call. Or text.
Or text. Okay.
Yeah, because people seem to be addicted to text.
Well,
terribly.
And if you're driving,
yes.
Pull over, you get a free book. But pull over on the side of the road first.
Let us know. Absolutely, I always say that. Absolutely, do not.
We don't want Dr. North having another book about giving away a book. So.
That's right. And I always tell people pull over. And I tried this years ago. Have you ever tried texting and driving? It's stupid.
I've never done that.
It's the stupidest thing.
No.
I did once going down whatever we call it, Lakeshore Drive to Old Fannin. There was nobody around. And I was, doing it and, looking up and down, trying to drive with my peripheral vision and looking at things. And I almost had an accident. And I thought, now how stupid would somebody be to be actually in traffic doing that? That's just nuts. But anyway, so all you have to do is, text us if you like, 601-879-4395, 601-879-4395. It's Points of Origin, and the other one is...
House call.
House call. Yeah, just say which one you want. You don't get to have two. Just get to have one. And I bet you they'll be gone. And
I think your switchboard is lighting up out there.
I think the word would be blowing up more than anything. So, what do you have to split your mind up when you're working. You have to be able to compartmentalize. So when you're seeing patients, you can't be thinking, oh, this might make a good storyline. Or when you're writing on your work and writing a book, you think, oh, now that patient's thing might work well for me or something. I mean, how do you compartmentalize, right? I mean, that's how you got to do it.
I do multitask, but I honestly keep those two things separate. If I'm seeing a patient, I'm not thinking about a book. That's true.
Well, what if a book character jumped in your head and say, hey,
Well, that's why you have your phone and your notes, and you can make little notes. And I'm more apt to get an idea at a party or just talking to somebody or, just meeting somebody on the street or that way.
You do have to definitely split up. One time when I was at the helicopter, there was a rainy day, and so we were just in the office, and I was doing it by phone. There were a lot of people around that day in the office doing other stuff. They did other things at that heliport. And so it was my time to do it, and I know I did it on the radio. And the guy who I work for said, that's amazing that you did that. How do you do that? I said, well, you block. You have to learn to block, and that's just all there is to it. And my dad taught me to block, and I don't know what he did. He just said, block it out. But when you're doing something, one thing you just have to you can hear them in the background, but they don't make any difference to you. You just do what you have to do.
Well, I find that when I write, it's really a kind of a peaceful time because you really are focused on one thing, and you do kind of block everything else out that's going out there. Although occasionally I have written while watching television because that gives me, sort of puts me in the mood if I'm watching a detective show or a murder show or something like that. You're not supposed to do that, but that helps me sometimes.
Well, but it works. Yeah. Which ones do you like, by the way? Do you like the SUV or the not NBC? I forget what those are.
SVU, the Special Victim.
Whatever it's
called.
I don't watch that. I watch just whatever the popular binge shows are that are going on at the time.
Binges.
my wife and daughter and I kind of keep up with all those things. So.
Well, I don't binge on it because I don't have a Netflix, but I do. There's so much junk on TV, so I got some good junk for you. In the evenings, it's so stupid.
No, I'll let you know before you go. We have given away 4 books already.
Wow!
So we're working on that.
4 more, right?
And, 4 more. So if y'all want them, make sure you. We'll almost have this done in the first segment.
I guess so. We'll just give out that text line again. Oh, I want to get one. Okay, 601-879-4395. That's how you can text and say, I'd like to have one of Darden North's books on grit.
Yeah, we got one. Oh, my word, Darden's mother taught me and was my mentor. Became a teacher because of her.
Oh, right.
So
that's
inspiration
cool.
right there.
That's cool.
I'm talking about.
Well, on Grit TV, they have Western movies in the evenings, and it's like,
Grit's free too. You can get that.
Yes, you can get that. It's an ancillary. It's a digital station. And what's funny about those, though, I like to watch them because they're more interesting than the junk that's on. But there's a set of pink pinkish mountains. It's one large pinkish mountain out in the middle of somewhere. And it is in almost every other one of those movies. It's the darndest thing. They all go by. Have you seen that, Lance? I can't remember if you asked about the Pink Mountains.
No.
Well, it's so weird. I mean, you watch it for that. And there are different little roadways through there and all this kind of stuff. But anyhow, that's something good and just anyway. But but they never cross. They don't cross. Your writing doesn't cross. Oh, and the other thing I want to know is, when you write, do you first of all, when you're a doctor, you have a set appointment. You appointments here, appointments there. And, you stick to a schedule.
We try to.
Well, but late afternoon is like the wait time is about an hour. But no, but when you write, do you set aside days, a day or a time of day, or do you write every day, or what do you do? How do you do it?
Well, and of course, when I am behind the office, it's not because I'm back there writing a book, for sure. If you really do write, if that's your only profession, I think you get up in the morning and you write, and then you edit in the afternoon. But that's not my situation. My writing is sort of a second profession. But once I get into a book, once I'm halfway through, the pages really come a lot faster, and I may get 5 or 10 pages written one day. But when the book starts, it may take me several days to write a page. That's just, the way I am. But I do something about my books every day, whether it's being in an interview or write or work with social media or go to a book signing or speak at a book club, things like that. So I think about it or do something every day.
Wow.
But it's not, regimented, and it would be a lot easier if it were like that. But it wouldn't be as much fun, I don't think.
Do you suppose one day you would retire from the medical business and go strictly as a writer, or like them both? Or
well, I think that's possible at some point. I will. I don't plan to retire anytime soon.
And your patients are going.
The medical association monitors that. I don't think they'll let you come up there when you're 90. I think they pretty much cut it off. But it is nice to have something else to think about. And I can't. I'm never bored. I'm just not that kind of person. There are other things I do too. My wife and I like to travel, like to work in the yard. You and I were talking about that earlier, Mary. And I have grandchildren and children, so I have lots of things to keep me occupied. But this is a special thing I like to do.
Here we go for our first break. It's Mary Wieden You. This is Darden North. We're going to get to your 7th book. Congratulations. That is so cool. We'll get with that as we move along. So we'll be right back. Who is it?
Well, that's Chris Stapleton before he was Chris Stapleton.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the Steel Drivers.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Good stuff.
Oh, okay. So welcome back to Mary Wieden You. Darden North is here. I don't know if I should call you Dr. Darden or just Darden. Well, he's here as Darden North, the writer of 7. Congratulations, 7 books. This is awesome. Who's your publisher?
WordCrafts Press.
How'd you find him?
Well, Mike Parker is the editor and publisher there, and he's a great guy to work with.
The Mike Parker from here?
No, he's from just outside of Nashville. Mike Parker. He's the publisher of WordCrafts Press.
And somebody told you about him.
Well, he was going to be at a book conference where you could actually pitch to publishers, pitch your book. And I didn't go to the conference, but saw his name and contacted him and pitched, I guess it would be The 5 Manners of Death to him at the time, and he accepted it. So, and I've really, really enjoyed working with him and his group.
Did you write that book before you did the very first one then?
Well, no, the first 3 books were self-published.
Oh, okay.
But then starting with Wiggle Room, I've had a commercial publisher to work with, which has been great because, they do the covers and all those kind of things like that.
Do they give you freedom? Are you free to do your own way of doing business as opposed to like the formula ones? We're talking about one of those formula ones that I used to have a lady who moved away, and it was very specific. The editor said, this is what you have to do, and you had to do it in a certain way, da, 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 da. And it didn't seem like, how can you have fun doing that if you can't express yourself? You have to do it. So are you allowed to just...
Sure. I think if a publisher or a literary agent signs you, and they sign you for your craft, for your voice, how you write, or they may sign the idea. Many times it's the idea. They don't really care who you are necessarily, but, can you write?
Exactly.
And what's the, topic of your novel? But, yes, I have complete freedom now. There have been times when I've asked my publisher, and I've told him if there is something in here you want to, for me to change, tell me. But I think he has said that I can write love stories, I can write murder scenes, I can write thrilling scenes. I mean, he just likes what I do, so I think we're fine. And
that's pretty good.
And when you send the book in, of course the publishing company has an editing process and go through it, and we're doing that now. And he asked me questions or has found things that he thinks maybe don't jive exactly right, and it's really a good working relationship.
Yeah. Something like that. He just doesn't pre-order up something. He doesn't say whatever.
No.
That's good. Mm-hmm. That's wonderful. Mm-hmm. And where is this place located? Wonderful.
Just outside of Nashville, Tennessee.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Who arranges your tours? And you're going to start. Is this the beginning of the tour now, or for this
yes,
book?
This is the beginning of the worldwide tour. Yes.
Yay.
Big splash here, and it's great. Thanks again. Back in the day, as we say, when my first book came out in 2005, we had tons and tons of bookstores in Mississippi, many more than we have now. And I really did do a whole lot of book signings, and still love to do that. COVID, obviously put a cramp on that, and a lot of other things. And I think that's coming back, and you have so much, social media way to do things and Zoom things, and a lot of even the workshops you can take now that you had to travel for, as far as an author or writer, you can do that on Zoom. So I think there isn't as much travel involved on those book signings, although I like to do that, and I do it as much as I can, to go to libraries, and we will be getting some book signings set up soon. There'll be actually our first one in Mississippi officially is June 24th at Lemuria, which is a Tuesday afternoon.
Oh, good. Pretty soon, you'll be getting a call from Good Morning America,
sure,
or Fox, or something like that, and you'll be very happy to go to New York, or they want you to go. They might say stay at home and do it on Zoom, but whatever, that would be cool.
Yeah, give me a call.
Yeah, really, absolutely. All right, folks. Hey, Lance, how are we doing on the giveaway?
We're at 5 right now.
We have 3 more to go.
3 more to go.
3 more of That's
not sure. They all of them have said whichever one you want to.
Okay. What are the books again? They are
House Call and Points of Origin.
Okay. 601-879-4395. That's 879-4395. Of course, area code 601-879-4395. And Lance will take down your name if you'd like to have one of these books.
Now, I'd like to say, Mary, that Points of Origin won an IPPY, which is an Independent Publishers Book Award for Southern Fiction, several years ago. And then Party Favors, one of my follow-up books, also did. And it's not the Pulitzer Prize, but
doesn't matter.
It's pretty good.
Never heard of it, IPPY. It sounds very much like Mississippi.
Right, but anyway, that's an acronym somehow for Independent Publishers Book Association.
You said you started off the first 3 self-published. I think that's maybe a good way for people to start, right? Because you get on Amazon, right? And
yes.
I think once you're on Amazon, you're pretty well golden. You can go where you want to go. I have a friend who writes books, and he's always self-published, and he writes weird things, weird and wonderful things. Mac, his name is Mac, and he's been on the show. Mac Cameron, he's been on the show. Wonderful things about the Gulf Coast, a lot of historical background, but the stories are very contemporary, and almost writes like a movie script. But he's been self-published, and I don't know if how far he's gone. He's done 3. But I think that's a good way to start, though, isn't it? Because you're out there.
Sure. There are lots of avenues, and I try to get an agent and a publisher initially, and of course back then you were writing letters and things like that. Now when you approach trying to work your way into it, there's email and things like that too. But that was a great avenue, and I think because the books were well received and fortunately sold a bunch of copies, it just kept me going. But it's nice. I've really enjoyed having a commercial publisher and being out in that world, because you have somebody else, rooting for you. They have a stake in it, and it's a stamp of approval too.
Sure. Yes, sir.
I have a 12-part question for the day. No,
sure.
I'm kidding. First of all, what was the when you started this? You said we had letters. When was that? When did you start this process and get the first book out?
Well, the first book was published in 2005, so about 2003 or 4, I was, querying agents, and you had to put a stamped address, self envelope in each one of the letters. In fact, I found some of those envelopes the other day with the stamps on them. and they would send you a rejection letter in the envelope.
In the return, they wanted
yeah,
to
return. Oh,
and sometimes you would put the envelope in the mailbox and get the rejection letter the next day. And you're like, how did that happen? But
they were reading your mind.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, how does the self-publishing aspect work when you're getting started and you have a great idea? You know it's something that people will want to consume, and here you are putting it together. You're not out looking for, like you're saying, you want a publisher and all that stuff, but how do you make that decision to go the route of self-publishing, and what are the obstacles and the benefits of doing that?
This is a 12-parter. It's good.
Okay.
Yeah.
You first of all, you want your product to be as professional as possible, and the Gibbs Company helped me with my first 3 books, and my covers were better than a lot of other New York Times best-selling authors' books were, I felt, at the time, and still do.
Who were they, the Gibbs Company?
They're here in Jackson, in Denton Gibbs and his group there.
Oh, yeah.
So when I want to write my book, The Many Uses of Clam Juice, I can self-publish it, and I go to Gibbs.
Well, yes, you can. Self-publishing is a lot easier now. I mean, Amazon's made that very, very easy. But, back when we were doing it, the books were printed. That was really before digital books too.
Well, you had to pay for all that, obviously.
Yeah,
too.
Plus you have to pay for it up front, and that's certainly an obstacle and something you have to really believe in yourself to do. But you have to, and you have to be sure your book has been, edited and professionally done as much as possible.
Where do you go from there, though? Once you get that perfected piece, how do you get it in Lemuria? How do you get it in, the booksellers and the places?
You have to have a thick skin and not be afraid to ask for help. And you have to have somebody helping you promote. But if your work is good, people appreciate it, and because enough people bought and read the first book, I went with the second book and third, and then kept going after that.
You went to Mr. Evans, I guess, is the guy.
Yes, Johnny Evans at Lemuria. That Lemuria is
really
great.
Good book. Yeah.
And they're very receptive. In fact, I think they really encourage local authors, and of course, you want to be an international author. Is what you want to be.
Yes.
But I mean, I think that's a very good avenue we have to, to get your book out there.
I heard of a woman who lives in Castlewoods. She's written like 30 romance books or something. I have no idea what her name is.
I'm sure when my mama was around, she probably read them.
No idea.
She would blow through those romance novels 5 a day.
Oh,
she was
Lord.
a speed reader.
Ooh.
And she said those are Mama's romance novels.
Ooh.
They all had Fabio on the front. Yeah.
Well, by the way, so you write? You can write love stuff. You can write romance. You can write more. What's harder to write? Romance scenes or murder scenes?
Well, I would. I hope I have more experience with romance than murder, but I think probably the murder scenes. I would think, and romance scenes. You have to. I think the best romance scenes are the ones that are written more by implication.
Instead of being explicit.
Yes. Yeah.
Mood setters.
Yeah.
Really? Yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense.
I did have someone approach me one time, a romance writer, that said she wanted to collaborate with me to write a medical romance novel, but that never did happen. But I still think that'd be interesting.
Was her name Diane Steele? No, what was it? Steele? What's her name? The Steele woman's name?
I think you're right. I think it's Diane Steele. Isn't that
Something
right?
like that. Diana, somebody Steele. Anyway, she's written a gazillions. I mean, I think she's a factory, if you want to know the truth. But anyway, that's pretty cool. You can do that after a while. Right?
Yeah, romance novels probably do have a certain formula that you go by.
Yes.
I my degrees are in writing fields, and they would always teach you how to construct a intellectual argument. But when you're putting a book together, how do you storyboard it for your chapters? How do you break that down so that you've got flow, and how do you glue it all together?
Well, there's supposedly 2 types of writers. There's a pantser, which means you write by the seat of your pants, and then a plotter. And I'm probably more of a pantser. I think every time I try to outline or do a detailed plot, about a fourth of the way in, and I just have to start writing the book. And I've heard other writers say they do the same thing. So a storyboard and being that organized would be so much easier in the end, when it's time to edit it and get it all straight. But I really do not have a well-organized storyboard. I do not.
Do you know the end of the story? Or did the characters...
That was going to be my next question.
No,
How does it unfold?
No, in fact, no. In the book Rooftop that's coming out, I really did know who was going to be the bad person really in the end. Just had to figure out a way to make that happen. But I have had novels, particularly Five Manners of Death, when I saved the person from being the criminal at the end because I wanted to keep her. You know?
Well, listen, we got to find out. Is that maybe Dr. Diana Bratton? We got to find out. I said we got to find out who she is, and we'll be back for her final segment with Darden North. Stay with us. Did Waylon die?
Waylon and Merle and that crew are passed on.
Of the Outlaws or whoever.
The only one left is Willie.
Yeah, he's the only one of the three. Those three guys. Chris Christopherson died too.
He's gone now. They all headed out.
Leaving the horses.
Greener pastures. Yeah.
The horses behind. So our final segment, it's going by so fast with Darden North. And this latest book is 7th, which is so impressive. Aren't you knocked out by that? And knowing that you've written 7 books, I mean, that's got to be pretty cool.
Well, thank you. It's been a feat, an accomplishment for sure.
Well, who is Dr. Diana Bratton? What about her, and who's she married to, and all that?
Diana Bratton was introduced as a single, divorced mother of an abusive marriage with a small daughter who was struggling to find a job, and she gets a job in a very prominent surgery practice, and basically helps her future husband, who's another one of the doctors in the practice, sort of overcome the problems he has of losing his brother through a murder. And that was in Wiggle Room. And so we introduced Diana, and she becomes more and more important, a bigger protagonist, becomes the protagonist in that novel. And we see her strengths and how she's coping with being a single mother at the time. Her practice as a surgeon is growing. She's still got the abusive ex-husband and that kind of dealing with him. And then
what city are they in?
They're in Jackson, Mississippi. Yeah. And then in the Five Manners of Death, we introduce Diana's Aunt Phoebe. And so she's trying to save Aunt Phoebe from all Aunt Phoebe's problems that she's bringing upon herself. And is Aunt Phoebe a good or bad person? And
subplot or plot? Is Aunt Phoebe part of the plot or a subplot?
She is sort of a subplot, okay. Yeah. And then through that process, Diana and Brad Cummins, her partner, marry. And then so they're married in Rooftop, the new book, and then Diana's young daughter, Kelsey, is growing up.
Yeah, she's about college age, but now.
And we were talking at the break, as part of the storyline, I had to keep, or a storyboard to keep Kelsey growing up and get straight how old she was going to be at the time. And so now she's dealing with a teenage daughter, and she's thrown into solving more mysteries and that kind of thing. And Aunt Phoebe's still around. And her relationship with Brad is growing. And Brad was really the main character in Wiggle Room initially, and then and he's still very important in this new novel, Rooftop. He's actually joins a men's walking group in town that walks at night in the neighborhood, and they sort of talk about. They
walk at night.
They do, and they talk about some of the political things going on. Men gossip too,
just a little bit.
But Brad's joining that walking group is very important to the plot, and that has a big factor in what happens.
Is it that they see things, or they hear things?
Well, something happens one night while they're walking, which is very important.
Okay. So did that? Okay, when you started writing this is a trilogy now.
Yeah, it's a trilogy.
Had you meant to do a trilogy?
No, I hadn't. I decided this would be a good way to do a trilogy, and as you know, a trilogy is not a series. It means each novel has its own standalone plot. It's just some of the same characters are in it.
I like books with the same characters in them. I mean, how can you? What's his name? The James Patterson guy. Oh, what's his name? The detective in James Patterson. He's in all those. It's like you want to know what he's up to. That kind of stuff.
Well, you have to keep up with your characters and make sure they're evolving and keeping their ages and things straight. But I didn't set out to write a trilogy, but I thought this is a good way to do it.
Well, is she going to continue on?
I think so. Okay. I'm trying to decide what to write next, and that's a decision whether to do a 4th book, the Diana Bratton, or go back to the novel that preceded the one that's come out, Party Favors, which was a whole different group of characters, or to do a trilogy with that one. So
this is she your first medical person? Protagonist?
Each book has I have medical characters in my books that have been published so far, but the books are not about the medicine itself. Right. But the characters you have to write kind of about what you know about.
That's what they say.
So yes, there are medical characters in there, but they have lives that are far-reaching beyond their life.
Yeah, really, because when you're talking about a homicide investigation, because that's in the blurb of the 5 ways to die, and I was like, okay. I mean, that's not exactly your profession, way of doing business. I don't think you've ever run into anything like that.
Yeah, as an OBGYN, we're all about bringing in life in the world. So, but I also have Key Martin, who's he's actually become the chief of police as he's moved through the trilogy, who is sort of a Columbo-like character that's attracted to Diana, and he's a little chatty, acts like he's sort of inept, but he's not. He's a very good detective.
Kind of like Columbo, like
yeah, he's sort of a Columbo character.
One more question, one more question, and that's always the one.
He's sort of Brad's nemesis, her husband's nemesis.
Is he jealous? Does he ever get jealous?
There's a little bit of jealousy there, but there really should be no need. There's no need for any jealousy.
Well, would she? Have you got in your mind that she can continue on, even though you don't know what it would be about? Would she could continue on as this continuing character?
Yes, she could. She could continue on. Yes.
But you write books about other people as well.
Someone compared it to her situation, sort of a mixture of House, that TV series was the doctor.
Oh yeah, Dr. House was great. I love that show.
And Angela Lansbury, but the character's not elderly or older like Angela Lansbury.
Right.
She's in her mid to late 30s.
Like Hugh Laurie was fabulous as House.
Do you ever go back and watch the old Agatha Christie movies to get any just flow and thoughts? Because I love the old stuff.
I don't. I'm really kind of into the new stuff.
No, I was just curious because they've remade, Death on the Nile and a bunch of the new ones that are Agatha Christie in much more of a film noir kind of setting, and it's really beautiful redone. Some of the remakes that are actually worth watching are some of the old Agatha Christie movies they've redone. So I was just curious with the thrillers and all of that, if there was any point of reference that gives you any ideas or where maybe that creative element comes from.
Maybe I need to watch one to get an idea for the next book.
He could do radio producers, for instance.
Well, that's
some murders. Or some.
What's happening in the studio?
Well, there you go. You just might have birthed an idea. Do any of your patients, Darden, say, "Hey, is that so and so from down the street? That that character named so and so? That sounds like the lady down the street or something, or the man down the street." Does that ever happen? That
I have people all the time think that I've written about them. I do think people would like to be written about. They would like to be thought of. That was
Can you
their
put
character.
me in your book?
Yeah, and sometimes I will joke you've been in it several times. You just don't know it.
You might want to get in touch with Steve Holland, the former legislator up in.
Is he writing?
Well, no, he presides over. Has tons of funeral homes.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the most colorful people that you'll ever meet, and also tied in with the stories in Tupelo with the craziness that happened up there with the rising, the threats to the president and all that stuff that originated up there. There's a great movie out on Netflix.
Really?
Regarding that. But yeah, he's an interesting character.
Steve Holland.
And if you're into the mystery stuff with the funeral home world, may be one you might want to look into, and he could help you with that one.
I used to interview him when I had done news, and it seems to me his wife is a psychiatrist or a psychologist.
I'm not sure.
It's one of those that I said something like, well, how fitting would that be? You got to have, Steve Holland is.
But if you ever need I could hook you up with Steve. Yeah. He'd love to visit with you. And y'all may have some ideas. He's a very creative guy.
Yeah.
Well, I would like to do that. I just wrote his name down.
Yeah. Do you? Do things. For instance, you hear about somebody think, well, you do. You call up somebody and say, hey, I'm working on this, working on that. Well, of course, now you have credibility. But when you first started out, like, oh yeah, you're writing a book about murder. Sure, buddy. Who in the heck do you think you are? Stuff like that. But now, like, oh yes, I know who you are. That kind of thing.
Yeah, I've talked to fire marshals, fire chiefs to get ideas about how to burn something down, and talked to the guy who was doing our stereo system in our house about how to blow a house up with a phone call. Just you can get all kind of information.
But yeah,
it scares you when somebody actually knows the answer to that stuff. Right? How do you do it? Well, let me tell you, sir.
We have a lot of talented people around here, don't we?
They start talking real quiet, real quietly when you ask them those kind of questions.
Well, and the whole law enforcement business, talking with those people, it's become so high tech, and they have to keep ahead of the perps. You know that, right? I mean, and that's hard with weaponry and with technology. And so there's a lot of good people that, I'm sure you know and can talk to.
I was talking to a detective about certain criminal activity and a crime that was committed, and I said why would somebody do that? They would know they would get caught. He said criminals are not smart. He said they aren't, and that's how you catch them. And
they always think, nobody's going to catch me. I know how to do it. And I think one of the prime people of that was Greg. No, that wasn't his first name. The guy, Lance, helped me with the guy, the former corrections commissioner.
Commissioner Epps.
Yeah, Chris Epps. Mm-hmm. Chris Epps is a former commissioner. He took all kinds of cash money, and he'd go riding around in his car. And he bought a fancy Mercedes, and he had a Rolex watch. So if he'd go to the bank with cash up $9,000, you could go without paying taxes, and nobody was going to find out who he was. Guess what? They found out who he was. Yeah, there was a teller, I'm told, at some bank someplace who started thinking, well, there was something. What's with this guy? And they started investigating, and so he's in prison.
Yeah, jealousy and curiosity. Those are the two things that'll catch you.
Darden North. What's the name of the latest book? The Rooftop?
Rooftop.
Rooftop. Okay. It's Dr. Diana Bratton is going to be the lead there. Well, thanks an awful lot. This has been so much fun. Come back.
I will. I hope to help to see everybody at the book festival in September.
Okay. And Lemuria is when?
June 24th.
Okay. We got it. Sell a lot of books. All right, everybody. Have a good weekend. Oh, we got political stuff coming up next week, as well as some information about a horse show. There's an interesting, unique horse show coming up, too. So politics, horses, and things in between. Have a good weekend.